I have the perfect person for us to talk to today about Handshake Gate. You know Handshake Gate. Victor Wembanyama gets embarrassed by the New York Knicks, walks straight off the court after Game 5, doesn't shake anyone's hand. I've got the perfect person for us to talk about Handshake Gate as it relates to Victor Wembanyama, the whole Wembanyama conversation, the whole Jalen Brunson conversation, the whole handshake conversation. Isiah Thomas, Detroit Pistons legend, will join the show in about 8 minutes, I would say. Give me 8 minutes to set it up. I'm going to be transparent with you, and particularly for those of you watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching, I can't lie to you because you'll see I taped this interview yesterday with Isiah Thomas. I can't lie to you because you're going to see the difference in my hair when we cut to the Isiah Thomas interview, so I'm not going to pretend like this interview is live. But, man, we had a great conversation about a bunch of things. Victor Wembanyama, the handshake deal from the 1991 Eastern Conference Finals. Isiah's got a great take on that, take on Jalen Brunson and small guards and the people that think you can't win with small guards. You guys know I've been very, very transparent with you all. Isiah Thomas is my favorite person from the world of sports. And so you got my favorite person. And again, my favorite athletes are Magic Johnson, Isiah Thomas. It's a bit different. Who am I forgetting? Magic Johnson, Tiger Woods. Did I say Magic Johnson, Tiger Woods, John Elway, Ray Lewis? Anyway, but Isiah's my favorite person from the world of sports. Isiah is a dear friend of mine and someone that, I've been defending for 20 some odd years. Now, when he was a Detroit Piston, he was not my favorite person. I'm a hardcore Indiana Pacer fan, and I'm a, from childhood Magic Johnson fan. But anyway, Isiah, one of the smartest minds in sports, he's going to join us. We got a busy day between this show and the Harmony show. We got a lot going on today. Steve Kim and Skap are going to join me at some point. We'll talk about Brendan Sorsby, and he's now going to the NFL. We'll let Skap react to Isiah and my conversation about Wemby and Jalen Brunson. We'll talk some Caitlin Clark today. We'll have some As The WNBA Turns. I put out a post over Twitter comparing Caitlin Clark to black prom students. Black kids going to the prom and showing off, and what's the difference? And those, I feel sorry for you watching or listening over Apple and Spotify. You can't see the corresponding video, but I'm playing a video showing Caitlin Clark talking smack and celebrating a close victory over the two-win Connecticut Sun. She's celebrating that she's done something incredible, and I have gone totally Jason Fliplock here. I'm close. I'm very close to completely giving up on Caitlin Clark. This isn't fixable. The things that I've been complaining about Caitlin Clark since college, they're not getting better. They're not fixable. And, I put out this deal we were just showing. I put it out over Twitter yesterday. What's the difference between Caitlin Clark and these black fatigue videos? When I watch her play, I'm getting fatigue. I'm rooting for her and all that, but I'm getting fatigue. And so we'll talk about that with Maurice and Charles. I'm sure Maurice will have a completely different take, but yeah, I'm just about completely all the way off. I've almost completely disembarked from the Caitlin Clark bandwagon. So we got that. lot popping on Fearless. Isiah Thomas, great conversations about Jalen Brunson and Wembanyama and handshake controversy and all that. Steve Kim and Skap, little Brendan Sorsby conversation there, a little As the WNBA Turns. And then, man, I got Jeff Metcalf coming on the Harmony show. That'll be right at 11:30. I want to give you a little preview because this is an interview we taped yesterday. It's tremendous. This will be a Jeff Metcalf no one's ever heard before. This will be the real Jeff Metcalf, not these little pulled excerpts or whatever. You're about to get a full picture of Jeff Metcalf, the father of Austin Metcalf, the young child murdered last year at a track meet in Frisco, Texas. I've seen his dad on do a 3-hour conversation. I wouldn't call it an interview, a conversation over X Spaces. He did a 20-minute interview with Megyn Kelly on her show. Jeff gives us a full hour, and I think this interview puts him in the proper context. No offense to anyone else that's interviewed him or had a conversation with him, but there is a reason why I do the Harmony show and I do the show that we do here, even on Fearless. You can never leave out the biblical angle. Never. If you want to get at the truth, you must talk to people from a biblical lens. The Bible and God's word is the foundation of truth, and that's why I think when you see Jeff Metcalf on Harmony, you're going to be, oh, okay, now I get him. Let's just play the little 60-second promo we put out of Jeff Metcalf just at 11:30 on the Harmony channel. Let's play that promo.
Because if you're in a self-defense case, I'm sorry, you need to get up there and tell your story, what you were thinking, why it happened, and why you did what you did. And I'm sorry, but it all starts at home. His family and other advocates got up and left. They left him by himself for sentencing and for victim impact statements. They are trying to financially profit off the murder of my son that your son killed. You're going to have to live with the fact your son is in prison and he's going to stay there. Because when I pay my tax dollars and I send my child to school, I expect him to come home alive. That's not a whole lot to ask. I would go through cancer 1,000,000 times again if I could just hug my son once. I am going to keep my son's name alive and remembered for as long as I'm here.
What is that? 81 minutes from right now on the Harmony channel, me and Jeff Metcalf one-on-one for an hour. It's amazing. I need you to be there. I also want to sincerely thank PreBorn for being on board with me and everything we're doing here with Fearless and the Harmony channel. It's not possible without PreBorn. PreBorn believes our worldview, that life begins at conception, and they support that worldview by giving an expectant mother who's considering abortion, they provide her with an ultrasound that introduces that baby's heartbeat and an image of that baby to the mother while the baby's in the womb. Now that woman, that mother, is twice as likely to choose life. And because we support PreBorn, they're able to support that woman and child for up to 2 years. PreBorn is an amazing organization founded by Dan Steiner. Our money that we donate, it doesn't go to pay for mid-level executives and their vacations or vacation homes or jet skis. It goes to providing ultrasounds. Each ultrasound costs $28. 5 ultrasounds cost $140. Whatever your best gift is, I'm imploring you, begging you, give it today. You want to put a smile on your own face? Save a baby's life. You want to put a smile on God's face? Save a baby's life. You can do that by donating to PreBorn. Go to preborn.com/fearless or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. When you do, when you make that decision to save a baby's life, God's going to have a smile on his face and he's going to think warmly of you. Please send me a note at FearlessBlazeShow@gmail.com letting me know you did it. It warms my heart, makes me feel good, makes me know that we are on task and on purpose here at Fearless. All right, let's get to Isiah Thomas. So, as promised, the original Jalen Brunson, the greatest Jalen Brunson of all time, one of the all-time great players in the NBA, Isiah Thomas joins us. Isiah, I'm not going to start with Jalen Brunson. I'm going to actually start with Victor Wembanyama. But we will get to Jalen Brunson because I'm going to get to beat my chest and say I was right. But Victor Wembanyama, he's been made into a villain through this NBA Finals series, through this playoff series. Do you think we're treating him fairly?
I think he's had his ups and downs, and I do think he's being treated and critiqued fairly. There's been a lot of great things said about him. And there's been, some not so great things, but I think it's been pretty much balanced. He is, one of the greatest players our league has ever seen already. At a very young age, he's got his team in the NBA Finals and competing for a championship. And I think he's 21 or 22 years old. Very rarely does that happen in our league. And then he's also made some mistakes. So, you have to call out the mistakes also.
Quantify one of the greatest players we've seen in our league. You already got him in the top 100. You got him in the top 50. What? Quantify that. What do you mean by one of the greatest players we've seen in our league?
Well, I would have to say, in terms of if I was going to quantify it, then I would have to put some age brackets around it because he hasn't had the longevity comparison to other players that we would talk about. But when we talk about, guys who have come into our league and gone to the NBA Finals at 22 or at 21, there's only a handful of those guys. Magic, Kareem, him, LeBron. There's only a handful that we're talking about. Even when you go back to Wilt and Russell and those guys, so that's what I mean by it's only a few guys who have done that, and I would have to put Sampson in that category too. Because I think his third year he was in the NBA Finals. There aren't very many guys who've come in and done it at this level at his age.
Ralph Sampson is who I literally was Googling and going to Basketball Reference, trying to figure out, hold on, when did he make the NBA Finals? Because that's who I think the comparison is. I think he's shown himself to be Ralph Sampson. And that's great, but I don't think of Ralph Sampson as one of the all-time great players. Maybe he had a chance to be before injuries. But, I look at Ralph Sampson and I think Wemby's a little fragile. And it's hard for me, like these guys in this era, I'm going to be the old man in the room, so you don't have to be. But these guys in this era, they're not facing the kind of difficulty and resistance that you guys felt in your era. So I'm always asking them to do more than just they don't have to meet y'all standard. To me, they have to exceed it because it's a bit too easy.
Yeah, I think Ralph Sampson is a good comparison. And had Ralph not got injured, had the benefit of a long career, we would be having a totally different conversation about him than we are today.
I think you're right, but even as it relates to Wemby, until Wemby gets a little stronger in the low post, I'm just never going to buy in?
Well, the thing that we do know about Wemby and what we've seen thus far, he is a learner. He wants to learn. He wants to get better, and he will seek out those who he think can help improve his game. And then he's there with Duncan, Robinson, Popovich. So he's got great tutelage around him and a great library of knowledge that he has access to. Now, will he go and use that? That's a different story.
I was disappointed, and I think one of the fairest criticisms are throughout that 5-game series, it should have become real obvious to him, hey, I have to do more consistently from in the paint. And I think he would like, oh, I'm going to do it. And then he would forget, and the 3-point line would seduce him. No, come back out here. It's less trouble. There's no Cat in here. There's no Mitchell Robinson in here. Come on out here and shoot these threes. I thought it became obvious after the first 2 games, hey, man, I better get my butt in the low post.
Yeah, I would say I consider myself extremely talented. And so now I'm going to transform my brain into a Wemby body, right? And that's the problem that we have as extremely talented people is that we, on the basketball court, I can do a multitude of things. And at a young age, we have trouble simplifying and doing the simple things or the easy things that are so easy for us that we get bored with them. So we want to constantly challenge ourselves by saying, I got to get better in these areas, as opposed to what the fans and observers and people like yourself and myself watching saying, man, if you just do this one thing, hey, the game's over. But in your mind, the complicated mind has a problem saying, you just want me to do this one thing? And we're saying, yeah, you'll win doing that one thing. He's like, but what about all the other things? If I just do this one thing, I am bored to death with the game. And his problem is now, don't get bored with success. Can you keep doing the mundane, consistent thing over and over again that helps you win, but it may not satisfy your internal drive to max out every part of the game? I don't know if that was too much, but I'm sorry if it was.
No. Look, it's harder to eat at a buffet than to go to a great steakhouse and just order the steak. You go to a buffet, everything's on the table. It's like, hey, I can do this, I can do that. And no, go eat that steak and potatoes. It's better for you. We'll win more championships that way. I'm going to let me stick to because I don't want to make sure I ask all the right questions. Wembanyama walking off the court without shaking anyone's hands, after losing that game. Some people are analogizing it to you and the Pistons walking off the court. Was it the Celtics or the Bulls? I can't remember. Anyway, do you have a problem, like I do, with Wembanyama walking off the court without congratulating the New York Knicks?
I would say this. There's only been one non-handshake that has been memorialized in sport. We've seen a lot of non-handshakes by great players. And I'm going to go back just to the era that I played in. Whitlock, I want you to find me the film footage of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird shaking hands at the end of the NBA Finals loss. And when you find that film footage, let me know. Now, I grew up in the 80s, and, teams lost and they left the court. Now, Jordan and the Bulls beat us, and yeah, we were leaving the court. Back in those days, you went in the opposing team's locker room after the game and you shook hands and everything else, especially if you lost on your home floor. Because on your home floor, you didn't want to stand around and watch the other team celebrate on your home floor. You went to your locker room, you left, and you gave them the grace. You gave them the grace of celebrating on your floor without you having to stand there and watch it. That's what I remember. Now, what y'all memorialized and what y'all talked about is kind of BS, right? I've watched Brady and Manning not shake hands after games, right? I've watched, a lot of great players walk off, don't shake hands, whatever. But the only one that y'all memorialize is the Pistons. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I can't say you're wrong. I know you've given it far more thought than I have because you lived the experience. And so it's impossible for me to debate you on that right now. And I don't want to re-argue you and Jordan and the Bulls. So let me just ask you, you have no problem with Wembanyama after all them cheap shots, after all the just all the extra stuff he did, he gets to walk off the court and lead most of his team off the court where they gave no congratulations, showed one player, Luke Cornett, showed the Knicks any respect.
I think the focus should be on the Knicks winning and celebrating. That's where the focus has always been. The focus has never and should ever be on the loser in terms of what the loser does. The focus has always been on celebrating, uplifting, and watching the winners win in victory, what they do, how they act, and that's how you elevate in the sport. The loser, he walks off and he lost. That's the era of sport that I grew up in. Things changed when y'all wanted everyone to all of a sudden be nice because I don't even go there, but that's when it changed, right? And that's when y'all start talking about, oh, you didn't shake hands. You never said Magic. Why didn't Magic shake Bird's hand when they lost? Why didn't Bird shake Magic's hand when they lost? You guys never, ever, ever, ever had that conversation. I was there. I watched every single contest. You guys never brought that to the forefront until this era of basketball after you criticized the Pistons.
So let me...
Now tell me if I'm wrong. Now don't just skip by it.
I cannot say you're... Look, Isaiah, like I said, I cannot say you're wrong. I cannot say you're wrong. You're fair.
Did you ever criticize Bird and Magic for not shaking hands after a championship game?
No, but, I was a kid then and wasn't in the media in the 80s, and I was rooting for Magic Johnson, and so, there's no telling what I was thinking at that time.
Okay, so you were rooting for Magic Johnson. When they lost to the Celtics, did you see Magic Johnson go shake Larry Bird's hand?
No, and I'm glad he didn't because back then I didn't like Larry Bird.
I'm just saying, and I can't believe you didn't like Larry Bird and you from Indiana.
It's crazy.
You know that?
It's crazy.
How can you say that?
Well,
you truly are conflicted as a man. I understand. You grew up in Indiana, don't like Larry Bird, but you proudly say, you are a Hoosier.
Yes. Yeah. And look, I love Larry Bird now, but back then I did not. And Magic Johnson at that time was my all-time favorite athlete, and I've explained that many, many times. But let me ask you this: Wembanyama, You've said there is some legitimate criticism of him, and it's been mostly fair. The legitimate, your criticisms have to do with style of play, everything on the court. I guess would be the things you would second guess about Wembanyama.
My criticism of him would be the places where he's the most dominant at is inside the paint. The places where he's most easier to guard is outside the paint at the three-point line. Anytime he's around the basket, he's 100% dominant. When he's away from the basket, he's not as dominant. That's the only critique.
I think I have something here that's going to impress you. And I think I have an original thought here that you've probably thought of, but I don't know if you've ever expressed it. And this is as it relates to Wembanyama versus Jalen Brunson. And I went into this series rooting for Jalen Brunson, thinking like, man, I've seen this type of leadership and energy before. I saw it with Isiah Thomas. I've seen this. And so I bet on it. Like, that's going to conquer the 7'5" guy, that giraffe that no one can deal with. And then as I thought deeper about it, Isiah, I think the entire argument, big man versus little man, is completely upside down. The big man, as the leader of the team, has a harder time winning a championship than the little man as the leader of the team. If you look at it through, like, Hakeem and Bill Russell are the actual exceptions. The other big men needed Kobe, needed Magic. And Magic's a big guy, but he's a point guard. The actual Larry Bird was a point forward. It's like the league actually favors the smarter player who has to think the game because he doesn't have overwhelming size. And so, like, Becky Hammond and all these guys, they're wrong. I'd rather have the little man that's had to think the game, or the smaller man, the playmaker, that's had to think the game his entire career, than the giant who, doesn't have to jump very high to dunk, doesn't have to put as much effort into understanding the game as the little man. The argument is totally upside. The game, when played properly, is best played by the smartest playmaker. And that's what Jalen Brunson is. That's what Isiah Thomas was. That's what Magic and Bird were. That's what Michael Jordan was.
It is a thinking man's game. And the only thing I would shift about the argument is that whether you big or small, that doesn't matter. It's the size of the brain that really matters. It's the intellect that you bring to the court. It's easier on the offensive side for the small man because he's always relegated to the perimeter. So therefore he can see 9 people in front of him. And he can manipulate 9 people because he has the ball. Wherever the ball goes, he can control the defense. I can make the defense shift left. I can make the defense shift right. I can compress the defense. I can draw the defense out. I can make that defense do anything I want it to do because I can control it with the movement of the ball. Now, defensively, the big man has the advantage because the big man is under the basket and he has the peripheral vision of 9 people in front of him. So that's why the big men who are great defenders, they're also great communicators. So Whitlock, think football, like the middle linebacker, the Ray Lewis, he's the great communicator and he sees everything. So he can call out the defense and everything else. That's what the big man has defensively. Offensively, the little man out there, he can control it, but it's the brain size. It's not necessarily the height and the weight size. It's the brain size and the intellect that you bring to the sport that allows you to be that way. Now, what made Magic, Bird, you mentioned Jordan, and myself, why those battles were so intense and so competitive and totally on another level, because you had four big brains out there trying to, we scoring a basket, but then how do we outthink the other? How do we force the other into a mistake? And how do we force the other to do things that he doesn't want to do? And that's where, when you talk about Magic and Bird, Jordan, them guys came to the game with such great intellect, and to beat them, you had to match that intellect and sometimes supersede it. And that's what Brunson just did with Wemby.
With Wemby, but also, and again, I think there's a lesson in here for all of these young basketball players, because, we just think size, and there is an advantage to that. But when Jalen Brunson brought something out of Karl Anthony Towns that we hadn't seen. Karl Anthony Towns was a bit of a laughingstock that everybody was joking about. And now his entire reputation has been changed. And what Brunson and that environment brought out a better form of Karl Anthony Towns, and he'll be celebrated for the rest of his career. And again, I'm looking at it like I saw Isiah take a weirdo like Dennis Rodman and find a role for him. And the next thing you know, this guy becomes an ultimate winner despite being a weirdo. Rick Mahorn and Bill Laimbeer and what they became because of the environment and the culture and the attitude and, hey, we're going to actually think the game and play in a smart way, it elevates everybody. And so I just don't, the game, no disrespect, because I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is one of the 2 or 3 best players of all time. I'm not disrespecting any of these big guys, but they just don't have to think the game the way the smaller playmakers, because, it's not like Bird and Magic weren't great athletic freaks. They had size, but they weren't great athletic freaks. And so I look at the guys that have to think the game, and I hope that's where the NBA continues to lean. I hope that Jalen Brunson kind of creates a wave of people like, hey, man, we can outsmart some of these more talented players just by playing in an intelligent way.
You're absolutely correct. And, the genetics, the bigger player, we'll call them the genetic freaks, because Whitlock, when we walk in, day to day in our normal day, we very rarely do we see a 7-foot guy. If ever. For like damn near a year, you don't see a one no more. You see them in the NBA and everything, but when you're walking in your daily life, you don't see like 6'10", 7 feet guys. So they have the genetics of size, and therefore they don't, in the game of basketball, their size and their genetic gifts can make up for sometimes their lack of intellect. So they don't have to be as smart as the smaller player, because the smaller player, get this Magic Johnson in his life has never, ever came to the basketball court wishing he could be 6'1". Every time Jalen Brunson or myself walked out on the floor, we looking at a big guy saying, man, I wish I was that big. If I was that big, I would do. A big guy never, ever has to, that never enters into his psyche. Like, man, I wish I was small. I wish I was 6'1", then, I could do that. They don't even think that way. But for us as smaller people, we have to be twice as fast, twice as good, twice as smart in order for us to compete with the genetic gifts that the big guy has.
Isiah, I want to move a little bit away from the NBA Finals. Did you say something recently about the Jordan flu game not being a flu game, or it's been misbranded, or it's a made up narrative? Did I? What was said here?
I just said we should start, as historians of the game, we should start telling the truth. And, I covered that game, and we were all told that, he had the flu. Then, since then, his doc came out, and he didn't have the flu. But we still promote that game as the flu game, when now we know it's not the flu game. The hero in that game was Scottie Pippen, who was so overlooked. Scottie Pippen basically was playing with a back that he should have been in the hospital with. But we didn't give Pippen the credit of playing in that game, and we saw Jordan leaning on Pippen. Pippen got a broke back, and he carrying Jordan off the court like he got the flu, but Pippen playing with a real broke back. So I'm just saying we just need to be accurate in our storytelling. That's all.
So, do you believe Jordan was sick?
He said he said he was sick, yeah, but it was in his doc. He said he had food poisoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you sick from food poisoning, but you didn't have the flu. So let's not call, let's just be accurate and factual. That's all.
The ill game. He was ill. No, he wasn't ill.
Whatever you want to say, it's not the flu, but
flu-like symptom game. How about that? 38 points with flu-like symptoms.
How you want to say it, you can say it, but also give the guy Scottie Pippen credit too for what he was playing with, because what he was playing with was significantly much more severe than what Jordan was playing with.
Did I hear you? And I say this with affection, but I don't remember Pippen scoring 38 in that game.
No. I'm not taking away from what Jordan did in terms of scoring and playing. I'm just saying let's be accurate historically about what we're seeing and reporting.
Can we call it the flu symptom-like and back problem game? How about?
I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying the narrative around that game is not accurate. That's all.
Finally, your Detroit Pistons. Weren't they the number one seed? What happened to the Pistons during the playoffs?
They got beat. Cleveland. Cleveland was, a handful for them. And, at game 7, they came out and they were flat. I was at that game and they were just really flat, no energy, nothing. And it was bad. I see your man, who's this, Hadley?
Yeah.
He was shaking his head. He got something to say?
he ain't got nothing to say. Listen, I ask everybody this, so I got to ask you as a point guard. And again, I may be catching you off guard with this question. You may not be prepared for it, but do you have a take on Caitlin Clark and what's going on with her this season? If you can pass on this is my pet topic.
No, I think Caitlin right now they're trying to win. They're trying to win the WNBA finals or not finals, but get ready for the finals. So this path that they're on, there's got to be some give and take, coaching wise, player wise, league wise. Let
me define the conversation for you.
Yeah.
And again, you can pass. You can pass if not. I obviously I love Caitlin Clark. I love watching her. I've watched every game. I've rewatched some games. I've reached the conclusion she's a bad leader, that she's an excellent player, but there's no leadership here, that she's not maturing as a leader, and it's frustrating me. All the whining with the referees, the flopping, the foul baiting, the victimhood. It's too much for me. It's ruining my enjoyment of Caitlin Clark, and I think she is contributing to. She's not totally responsible, but she's contributing to the dysfunction within that organization because she's just not maturing as a leader. I think year one, players, a lot of the media commentators, really unfair to her. I think year three at this point, I think the players have pretty much left her alone. I think many of them are grateful for the CBA and all the benefits that came along with Caitlin Clark. And she's guarded fairly, in my opinion, but she's flopping around and acting like she's still a victim. And there's part of me that thinks that there's a sympathetic angle as it relates to the head coach, that she's so emotional that she just can't be the leader of your team because she has no control over her emotions.
I would say being a great player and being extremely talented and being a great leader, those two don't always go hand in hand. And leadership skills and basketball skills are two totally different things. They're not the same. Now, if you get leadership skills and basketball skills when they connect, that's when you got unbelievable, magic that happens in a basketball team chemistry-wise. So can Caitlin continue to develop and work on her leadership skills? I believe she can get better at that. Will she get better at that? That's what we all are watching. In her third year now, we're saying, we expected a little bit more, but right now we're not getting that. And that's a fair critique, right? We want a little bit more. But we're not asking more from you as a basketball player. We're asking more from you as a leader. And that's fair. That's fair.
Isiah, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon. That's Isiah Thomas.
All right, boss.
All right. We'll be back with more. Next. It's one of those days where I'm really thankful for MarsMen. Really thankful. I'm up at 4:30 a.m. preparing for this show. 7 a.m., I'm in my barber's chair getting this hair cut. 8 a.m., I'm back here at my house and studio preparing for the show again with my guys. After the show, my accountant's going to be here. We got some business to talk over. I got a meeting with my banker about some business there. I got to get a P.O. box. I got my prayer call tonight at 7:30, and Caitlin Clark plays tonight. I can do it all because of MarsMen. I am helping my testosterone levels. You guys know, you get to about age 30, age 35, you start losing testosterone levels. You start having low T problems. You need something to help. MarsMen is exactly what you need. MarsMen has been a benefit to me for about the past 6 months. I can really feel the difference. My energy level. I forgot, I got a workout I got to get in today as well. My day is going to be action-packed from 4:30 a.m. until about 10 at night. I'm 59 years old, guys. I can't believe I can do this, but I can because MarsMen is helping me, and it can help you too. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they will ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them I sent you.
Because if you're in a self-defense case, I'm sorry, you need to get up there and tell your story, what you were thinking, why it happened, and why you did what you did. And I'm sorry, but it all starts at home. His family and other advocates got up and left. They left him by himself for sentencing and for victim impact statements. They are trying to financially profit off the murder of my son that your son killed. You're going to have to live with the fact your son is in prison and he's going to stay there. Because when I pay my tax dollars and I send my child to school, I expect him to come home alive. That's not a whole lot to ask. I would go through cancer 1,000,000 times again if I could just hug my son once. I am going to keep my son's name alive and remembered for as long as I'm here.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let's bring in Steve Kim, the Korean co-cell, and Jay Skapinac, Skap Attack. Skap, I'm going to start by attacking you. It's long overdue. After what Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks did, and having Isiah come in and co-sign my narrative that we're underestimating the leadership angle and what the small man brings to basketball, and it's actually more important than what the big man does. Skap, I hope you learned something during that conversation between Isiah and myself. When you see two great basketball minds and two great former players have that kind of conversation that Isiah Thomas and I just had, I'm sure you were very impressed.
Jason, allow me to turn this around on you because Kobe Bean Bryant was exponentially better in the first three-peat than Jalen Brunson was in this title run. So I want you, Jason Whitlock, Kobe Bryant hater, to sit there and extend some kind of gratitude towards what you were able to watch Kobe, the late, great Kobe Bryant, do. I want you to admit finally, once and foremost, Jason, as a Kobe hater, that Kobe was the MVP, the true rightful MVP of the first three-peat when him and Shaq ran through the NBA. Can you tell me that, and then I'll follow up with your conversation with Isiah Thomas.
Hold for 1 second. Hold for 1 second. Steve, I just got done talking to one of the greatest point guards of all time, a Hall of Famer. Jalen Brunson just won a championship. And this dude, first thing out of his mouth is Kobe Bryant. What does Kobe Bryant have to do with anything that's going on?
Well, he got it out of the way early because he's going to do Jokic in about 10 minutes. So here's the thing. Before I was a longtime diehard New York Knicks fan, I was a Laker fan.
Yeah.
To Scap's point, and I've said this numerous times, in that original three-peat, the Lakers do not get out of the West at least once, if not twice, without that kid from Marion, Pennsylvania. That is a fact. Shaq got all the NBA MVPs because they're playing Flotsam and Jetsam of the Eastern Conference. I get it. But Skap is not completely out of line
I'm in an alternate universe. The New York Knicks just won their first title in 53 years. Isiah Thomas comes on, talks about why the handshake deal is overblown, why Jalen Brunson and small guards can actually win, and just thinking the game may be the trend. I've been on a jihad against Victor Wembanyama, and Skap, you turn this into a Kobe conversation?
Well, Jason, here's the thing, Jason. I just want some consistency. You want to run all over me and pound your chest and try to talk up your original premise was the correct premise that we were arguing about pre-series. So you want some respect, huh? You want me to give you your cred for being right on that. I just want some consistency because you dislike Kobe Bryant so much. And Jason, you couldn't even give him credit during that era. You kept referencing all of the small guys that were successful, that play with big guys. You mentioned Kobe's name one single time, and it was just in a fleeting, passing little reference.
That's because I'm not you, Skap. I don't see everything through a Kobe lens. Magic, Kobe. Who else did it relates?
look, to your point, hold on. To your point, though, on little guys, I think you make a compelling point, and let me just take this. Let's go a larger overall picture here. You make a compelling point how most of the bigs needed a great little, or maybe the smaller guys are the more successful at some stage. In all-time NBA history, though, Jason, there has been a very, very select few amount of guard players that were able to win more than one championship. Anything can happen in a vacuum of a 1 year run, or like a one kind of flukish year kind of run. But if you to win more than one ring in the NBA, take a look at the small guys or the guard players, not because some of these guys won't be that small, but there have been very few small or guard players that have been able to win more than one ring without an all-time legendary big. Like, who are we talking about in reality?
We're talking about Kobe Bryant, 1-2 without Shaq.
Isaiah.
We're talking about Isaiah.
And Curry.
Steph Curry. Hold on.
And that's it. That's it. 4 guys. Isaiah, Kobe, Jordan, and Curry. That's it. Other than that, the guys that you're talking about, or the Magic, he didn't win any without a great all-time big. Like Oscar Robertson.
They didn't win a championship with Vlade. They didn't win a championship.
No, they went to the finals in '91.
He won all 5 of his rings
with Kareem.
Now, and sure, Kareem needed Oscar and Magic to win all 6 of his. So your point proves right there that he needed like a great small, but no small player really, other than a very select few. Jason, when you go through NBA history and look at the dominant dynastic teams, starting in the 1950s with the Minneapolis Lakers, George Mikan, like a big player, 7 foot plus player. You then segue into Bill Russell's dynastic hold with the Celtics. Like, yes,
great guards all over that Celtics deal.
Correct.
Great guards.
But the leader, the guy was Bill Russell, though. You then get into Kareem was very successful.
Oscar was the leader. Magic was the leader. Continue.
I'm gonna say
Kobe was the leader. I'm gonna say this: Shaq's the best player, but Kobe was the leader. Without Kobe, Shaq does what he did in Orlando. He's not a leader. But go ahead, continue.
But my point overall, though, mostly all of the multi-championship run teams in NBA history that did not have an all-time, great big. Like, it's few and far between. Like, Kobe did it twice, Isaiah did it twice, Curry did it 4 times, Jordan did it 6 times. But other than that,
did the Seattle Supersonics go back-to-back, or they just won? Did they split with Washington, the Bullets? Yeah. Did they play the Bullets back-to-back, 1-1, lost 1, or something like that? When I was a kid, I can't remember. But and then Portland Portland didn't win back-to-back, but they did have Bill Walton. And that was, and they didn't. I remember Maurice Lucas. Who was the point guard for? Man, Bill Walton was really the point center for that team. Yeah. Huh. That's someone I forgot. Yeah, it's a decent. Did anything else? I mean, what about Isaiah and the hands? I'm gonna move to Steve. Hold on, right. Unless you got another. You gonna bring Jokic into this, Scat?
No, Jason. But I do want to bring one thing in here. Look, I know you're a big Isaiah fan, so I don't want to come in here and like slander him on your your show.
Don't do that.
I won't. Do that. But I will say this. What are we talking about? The flu. Jordan had a 103 confirmed temperature in that game 5 in the 1997 NBA Finals. I don't care what semantics or what you want to call it, food poisoning, flu, whatever. He had a 103 degree temperature. He scored 38 points in that game. And Scottie Pippen had 17 points on 5 of 17 shooting. Yeah. And he's going to sit here and say, Scottie Pippen was the real story. Scottie Pippen was the real big thing that we need to take away from that game. What are we doing here?
Isaiah has a small bias against Michael Jordan. I think we can all agree with that. As much as you're anti or pro Kobe Bryant, that's how anti he is Michael Jordan. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. So I want to say something. Yeah. Preface everything here. I am a Zeke respecter.
Thank you.
Out of the 5 greatest performances and exhibitions of basketball, I think Isaiah has 2 of them. Really.
Yeah.
The 16 points he scored in like 70 seconds against the Knicks in Game 5. The 29 points he scored in one quarter against the Lakers in Game 6.
On one leg.
I think he's the best small, or let's say under 6'1" player I've ever seen. With that said, Jason, I get it. The blowback and the bias against Jordan. He probably deserves to have it. But one point I want to start off first. When he said, did you ever see Magic and Bird shake hands after losing a title? No, we did not. Not on the court. He did point out they'd go into the locker room and say, congratulations, right? There's footage of it. But Jason, specifically in 84 and in 87, they were still rushing the court, the fans. There was no time for any of that, especially in 84 when the Lakers choked that series away. All of Boston was swarming that floor as Cooper put up the late three. You had to get out of there for your own safety. The other thing that Isiah just conveniently leaves out, they're about the only team that ever left early.
Time on the
They
7 seconds.
literally left early. Well, it's still early.
I know, 7 seconds. I agree with you.
And here's the other thing. I think they stayed on brand. I kind of liked it in my own way. They were the bad boys. They were dastardly. Okay? And I said, you know what? They kind of like were who they were. They weren't going to be phonies. But Isiah has to, I think, add a little context to this whole thing about how players would congratulate each other back in that era.
Listen, here's the issue with Isiah that I think is accurate. He's never been given the proper respect for his accomplishments. In the middle of the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan era, a 6'1" guard won back-to-back titles, and that whole team believes that the whole league was against them, that the league was invested in the Michael Jordan deal, the Chicago, Boston, L.A. thing, the East Coast, West Coast, and then Chicago. And here they were from ghetto Detroit, upsetting the league. And it's why I say this in total sincerity. Isiah Thomas is the greatest leader in the history of the NBA, and he was never celebrated that way. And the reason why I've jumped on board with Jalen Brunson, I think he has a chance to be the second greatest leader in the history of the NBA, to take that $100 million less, to bring out the best in Karl Anthony Towns, to reconnect with his college teammates, to put up a 45-point masterpiece in a closeout game on the road. I'm telling you, there's these intangibles. And Skap, I'm saying this respectfully because you're brilliant and you got a mind like a computer. But you got a mind like a computer. And I think you underestimate the human element of having guys like Isiah and guys like Jalen Brunson. I think if I were sitting here right now and said, I think Kobe Bryant is the greatest leader in NBA history, there would be a smile on your face because you've been programmed to believe that Kobe, despite what happened in Denver, despite running off Shaquille O'Neal, you've been programmed to believe that Kobe Bryant is the second greatest player in the NBA. I'm just trying to mess with your programming a little bit and put some new data points in there. Leadership. Again, when you compare Michael Jordan, and I love Michael Jordan, drinking and gambling and playing golf. Magic Johnson, obviously a male whore that ruined his life being a male whore. Larry Bird liked to drink. Isiah, not a drinker, not a partier. And he's a 6'1" guy that had to take every little advantage and to manipulate his teammates. And they won 2 straight championships in the middle of the greatest era in NBA history. It's one of the greatest accomplishments in sports. He doesn't get credit for it, the proper amount of credit for it, because people don't like him, and David Stern certainly didn't like him. I love the guy. I think he's awesome, and I think he's misunderstood, and I think his reputation has been smeared unfairly. Now, Skap, you can say whatever you want.
So Jason, look, and I don't want to make it all Kobe centric, but like a lot of the things you mentioned, look, a lot of the reasons you like Isiah Thomas and the things you mentioned is because situationally you came up in a time watching him, rooting from. I was that same guy that
I
you
wasn't
were
rooting
watching
for Isiah, but go ahead.
Oh, but I watched Kobe Bryant I watched every game that guy played in the early 2000s. I said, that's the best player on the team, not Shaq. And he got no credit at all. None. From people like you of your ilk that said that he just rode Shaq, that he couldn't do it without Shaq. So Kobe, because like you're saying, Isiah had that chip on his shoulder and disliked Jordan and stuff because he didn't get his respect. Kobe didn't get his respect. So what Kobe did was say, hey, you don't think I can do it without Shaq? Well, check this out. And then he took on Pau Gasol. Like, everybody in revisionism uplifts Pau Gasol now. At the time Pau Gasol joined the Lakers, he was a nobody. He never won one single playoff game. He made one single All-Star ever in 7 years. Kobe took that dude and ran through a Western Conference where he was beating 50-win teams in the 8th spot. Jason, one year he had to beat Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and James Harden in the first round in the 1 versus 8 just to get to the second round. He went through that Western Conference and then played beastly teams that came out of the East that were beating LeBron James, who was league MVP, with the biggest win totals in the NBA during those years. Kobe was then beating those teams in the finals after getting through that Western Conference. And he was doing it while leading the NBA playoffs and scoring 3 straight years, 3 times over 600 points. No one's ever done it, ever. Not Jordan, not LeBron, nobody. But this guy, with Pau Gasol as his next best player, playing 50-plus win teams every single series and every single path along the way for 3 straight years. So he showed it. It's not speculation. Like, I'm not sitting here and saying, oh, well, the way I feel or the way Kobe made me feel. No, Kobe had arguably the greatest extended playoff run we've seen in at least the modern era. And he did it on the heels of after being an integral part in a three-peat, which was the only third three-peat we've seen since 1970. And yet people still, Jason, still say, well, I struggle to get Kobe in my top 10. You sitting here right now before me probably do not think Kobe Bryant is a top 10 all-time NBA player.
Yes, I do. I think he's somewhere around 8, 9. But yes, I do.
But anyway, my point is there's a lot of actual comps between Kobe and Isiah. A lot of the things you were talking about and mentioning was kind of the things I'm thinking about Kobe coming through. Like, Tim Duncan is the favorite guy probably during his era. LeBron James came along early on when Kobe was still in his prime, and they started uplifting LeBron and trying to turn the league over to LeBron and make LeBron the face of the league early on in Kobe's run.
Can I get you to do this? I'm going to concede your points. I'm going to. You're right that because and people don't understand this, but like post career, I liked Kobe Bryant and said that, and people, all the Kobe worshipers, the Kobe cult, and these NBA players have a cult like worship of Kobe in death. And the Matt Barnes of the world, the Steven Jacksons, it's unhealthy. It really, and it's weird, their obsession. But they try to paint me as like, oh, Whitlock, because I didn't like Kobe during his career. Post his career, I was on the record like, no, I really like Kobe. And it's same. I went through the exact same thing with Michael Jordan. During Michael Jordan's career, I hated him. I'm a Pacer fan. Soon as he retired, I loved Michael Jordan and gave him his respect. This cult-like worship of Kobe in death, and like no one can mention what happened in Denver as like a mark against him, and some of the other things that were, him basically quitting on the Lakers, on the court, threatening to blah, blah, blah. There's some mitigating factors with Kobe. But all I'm begging you to do, could you put some respect on Jalen Brunson's name and acknowledge that Jalen Brunson led that team to a championship, and it's one of the greatest things we've ever seen. San Antonio knocked off the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that, according to Skap, was going to win 5 straight championships in a row. San Antonio was more than qualified, and they got this Wembanyama. This was David slaying Goliath. And I'm asking, the same way you're begging me, hey, put some respect on Kobe's name. I just did. I'm giving him the respect. Put some respect on Jalen Brunson's name.
I love Jalen Brunson. I've been rooting for him since he got to New York, and I think he had probably one of the 5 greatest closeout performances in NBA history in Game 4, and a very deserved Finals MVP just based on the veracity of that incredible all-time performance in the closeout Game 5 on the road.
And I'm going to stop you there because what concerns me is the next thing that's going to come out of your mouth are some of those analytic stats that prove that no, it was really Karl Anthony Towns, and I know he only scored 2 points in the closeout game, but he was the real key because of this stat, and that stat. So I'm going to stop you there. Steve, you got anything you want to add here?
I will say this. The Kobe and Isiah. I would say that the 2 championships that were post-Shaq for Kobe, that overall roster of the Lakers is probably among the worst that the Lakers have had through all their championships. So if you lined up all 16, 17 other championships, that team's probably like 16th or 17th. I've said this. The Detroit Pistons, those 2 years or that 4-year stretch, they probably had more quality depth than any team I've ever seen. I mean, just look at the bench. You had Rodman, John Sally, Buda Edwards in the microwave. Joe Dumars is a Hall of Famer. Dennis Rodman is a Hall of Famer. Bill Laimbeer is actually underrated. As dirty as he was, that guy was like a 4 or 5-time All-Star. So I'm just telling you, and this is not to take away from Zeke, but Isiah, he was a leader, but he led an incredibly talented, deep squad.
Which is what Brunson did this year with the Knicks. A great overall team in the Knicks.
Could it be that Brunson and Isiah elevated the other guys? And Kobe was and I'm not diminishing Kobe. He's a top 10. If you want to put him top 6, no, I won't even argue. But he was such a narcissist and so a bad teammate in some regards that perhaps the other players were diminished a tiny bit. And that's why. That's why, Kobe didn't really elevate. He diminished. He's a bit of a narcissist and a bit of a bully. And, maybe
Here, Jason, let me give you a quick trivia question. Can you name me which players in NBA history have been swept the most all time?
Swept the most in the playoffs? Is it LeBron? I don't know. Who?
No, it's actually not, Jason. It's he's tied. Shaquille O'Neal and Pau Gasol are tied for being swept the most times in NBA history. So could it be maybe that those 2 guys, who couldn't win anything and were continually getting swept time and time again out of the playoffs, could it be that maybe Kobe Bryant is a little bit better of an uplifter than most people will give him credit for? Yes, he didn't lead them in the way that, he galvanized the troops and made them want to go out there in like a Tom Brady classical sense of the word. But again, I've said it to you before on this show, and I'll say it again. In his own words, Kobe Bryant said that leadership is a burden. It's a responsibility, and it doesn't always mean making guys feel good about themselves. That you have to challenge them, and for times they might even resent you or hate you for it. And he said that was his style of leadership, that he challenged them to become their inner beast and become the best they can. It wasn't being friends with them. It was actually challenging and defying them to get up to his level. Not all guys lead like that. But that was his leadership style, and he was as successful as practically any player in NBA history other than like Bill Russell.
Jason, did you watch the recent videos that have been on Twitter? And I guess Shaq is doing this roundtable podcast with his former Miami Heat teammates when they won it. And there are stories when they're laughing about it that Shaq would say at certain cities, hey, bro, I'm getting 2 fouls late night last night. Well, and by the way, Alonzo Mourning would say, flat out in first 3 minutes, I was in the game. So the more I think about it and the more I'm just kind of mulling it over, I think there's a very good chance without Kobe and what he did, Shaq may have only won 1 title in LA. And I've referenced this before to you, Jason. In that back-to-back year, when Shaq flat out said, I am not getting surgery on company time. Took a summer vacation, came in overweight, missed the first, I think, month and a half, 2. He did not get going till April. And Kobe flat out said on an ESPN magazine cover story, he said, this big fat guy, we have to wait around for him. And Phil Jackson said, slow down the pace. Slow down the pace? I'm about to quicken the pace. I'm not going to wait for that big fat guy who decided to take the first 2 months off. you know what? Leadership comes in a lot of forms. And Jason, I will respectfully push back. Kobe did not run Shaq out of L.A. Shaq ran Shaq out of L.A.
I'm not gonna get to Brendan Sorsby.
Yeah.
Charles is another Kobe groupie. Charles Baker, longtime college basketball coach, and I've been in my ear about Kobe Bryant. You think me and you argue about Kobe Bryant? Charles was doing this 20 years ago. Charles, I'm gonna give you the final word on this Isiah Thomas, Kobe Bryant, the entire conversation. I already know whose side you're on, but anyway, I'm gonna give you your piece.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. First, I want to go back to Isiah. You know, I had the privilege of sitting with him at the finals in Toronto, me and Darryl Walker, and I told Isiah, I said, your biggest problem is you don't have a John the Baptist out there. I said, Michael Jordan has some, Magic has some, LeBron has a whole team of them, but you don't have your own personal John the Baptist. And when you try to plead your own case, it doesn't sound as good. But you mentioned it earlier. He beat, and I mentioned this to him one time. I said, you know, you beat, Jordan, you beat Bird, you beat Magic. He said in the same playoffs, by the way. So yeah, and I've always said that the Detroit Pistons won 3 titles. Sorry about that, Jay. They won 3 titles because I've looked at this film 100 times and I'm still waiting on Bill Lambert to foul Kareem on that shot in that game 6 you talked about with Isiah. The Pistons should have won that championship. All right. So I'm not gonna comment anything about Kobe because you know how I feel about him. I mean, Kobe Bryant is real. Jay, the next time this Kobe Bryant discussion comes up about Shaq, now Shaq dominated in the playoffs against New Jersey and those teams. He did. But if you recall, the 2 best teams in the league that year were the San Antonio Spurs and the Los Angeles Lakers. And you go back to that Western Conference finals with the Spurs and the Lakers, it was Kobe Bryant. He was dominant. He I think he averaged about 35 or 36. I may be wrong on the numbers, but he was the reason that the Lakers made it there. Now, when you get to
22, he was 22 years old, which no one mentioned him in the Isiah and Whitlock interview about the 22-year-olds to get into the NBA Finals. Just saying.
And Coach, to your point.
So when you get to the finals, and Shaq is being guarded by Keith Van Horn and people like that, then yeah, you got to go to him, and he's gonna put up monster numbers. But not to take anything away from Shaq, this idea that Kobe rode coattail in those 3 championships, that's just a myth. That never happened. And it was 1A and 1A. There was no 1B. I mean, they were tit for tat.
Steve, you got to be quick without hurrying. I got to get to As the WNBA Turns.
Isiah does have Jason the Baptist. Let's make that very clear. Also, that series against San Antonio, it was game 1. And I've never seen a guy attack the rim on the Admiral and Tim Duncan. He had 42 points, tip back dunk, mid-range. And the next day, Shaq, everyone thought he was crazy and kidding when he said, "Oh, Kobe, that's my idol." He was serious. That's one of the top 5 games I've ever seen from a player in that circumstance, and probably one of the top 3 games Kobe's ever played. Again, and let's go back. Shaq fouls out game 4 at Conseco Fieldhouse. No one else can create a shot off the dribble for the Lakers except a young man by the name of Kobe Bean Bryant. We went up 3-1 because of that guy, because the other guy can't rebound and block out properly. But anyway, I still respect Shaq. Just want everyone to know.
All right. I'm done with you guys, Skap and Steve. We've gone overtime. We've cut into my Caitlin Clark time. Play the As the WNBA Turns promo or intro, and Shaq and Maurice and I will talk Caitlin Clark.
WNBA Turns, starring Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Asia Wilson. Brought to you by George Soros, Adam Silver, Kathy Engelbert, and the Global Elite.
All right, time for a little WNBA talk. And did I say Shaq? Because, again, I'm a long-time Shaq guy. Guess being overweight and lazy, me and Shaq got that in common. But anyway, let's get to the WNBA conversation. Let's bring in Maurice and bring Charles back. Maurice, I know you've probably been disappointed with me. It's Tuesday, and I'm firmly have disembarked from the Caitlin Clark bandwagon for now. I don't know. I've disembarked and hopped back on so many different times. I'm not even sure how long I'll be off the bandwagon if I can sustain this, but I'm off the bandwagon. They beat a 2-win Connecticut Sun team. They've been on a 3-game winning streak against bottom feeders of the WNBA, and they're acting like they're the 84 Boston Celtics or I don't know, the 86 Lakers, or I don't know which years, but they're acting like they're an all-time great team and they're on some incredible run. I don't like it. Caitlin Clark's attitude and behavior on the court are not improving. I thought, and this is the argument I've been having over social media with people, is like, I thought we were getting something different in Caitlin Clark. And it feels like Caitlin Clark is turning into the stereotypical WNBA player, and we're not getting something different. And so I'm off the bandwagon. Your reaction?
I am very, very disappointed in you. But you know what? I believe that you'll be back on very soon. I think she's going to put on a dominant performance tonight. You'll be back on before you know it. I don't know if you bumped your head. I don't know if you've been skipping breakfast. I don't know if you're fasting. I don't know what is going on, but you are in the proper mental space. I don't know what the issue is with Caitlin Clark. I mean, Caitlin Clark has been trash talking. She trash talked at Iowa. She did the "you can't see me" with her coaches celebrating at Iowa. When has trash talking your opponent ever been a bad thing? We all grew up playing sports that way, whether it's football, basketball, whatever it is. Trash talk has always been a part of it. Now, some of her theatrics with the refs, does she have to get it under control? Absolutely, because if she doesn't, she's going to end up being suspended because she's already halfway to the number. But I don't have any problem with Caitlin Clark being passionate, being fiery, because that is who she is. You can't tame that, okay? You have to let her be emotional to a degree, but you cannot tame the fire that makes her her. But I think there are, I don't know if you're getting on this side, but I don't know what she can do to actually make some of you happy. You know, last time you said that she was foul baiting and you weren't entertained because she was 15 of 15 from the free throw line. This game, she scores 25 points. Don't get no foul calls, no free throws. 3 30-foot threes. What more do you want? What more do you want?
She got 2 technicals in that game and got ejected. And let's play the video comparing her to the prom night deal. This little Sophie Cunningham closes out the game with 11 straight points. It's Sophie Cunningham's moment. Caitlin Clark, being the narcissist that she is, makes it about her and makes it about taunting the other team at the end of the game and gets tossed from the game. She's not a leader, Maurice. That's what's driving. I want her to be a leader, and I don't want her to act like...
Do you want her to act like Tim Duncan?
Yes, I'd love it. I'd love her to act like Isiah Thomas. I'd love her to act like Steph Curry. I'd love, Steph does a little bit of gloating. But I want more leadership from Caitlin Clark. I want a young woman that inspires other young girls to behave properly while in competition, not mimicking this.
I think that sometimes we forget Caitlin Clark is a 24-year-old second-year basketball player.
Third year in the WNBA.
I mean, third year, but technically she's playing in her second season. Who's still, this is like your sophomore, junior year away from being at home. She's been home in Iowa. Like, I think sometimes we expect her to behave like a 30-year-old woman, but hey, I saw you put up that you loved Olivia Miles. Did you see what Olivia Miles was doing? Trash talking Sarah Ashley Barker.
a rookie with an afro, a rookie with glass, a rookie that, again, I like Olivia Miles, but she's probably alphabet. And so, I'm going to alphabet, they're a little extra. And so Caitlin Clark's not alphabet. I don't want the extra.
We have to. I'm sorry, Charles. There's one thing Whitlock said. I have to get to it before I forget. You brought up Angel Reese in comparison to Caitlin Clark. How low can you go? I mean, come on. We're talking about a girl who can't make layups 3 years later, and the girl was just crying mid-game after she started a back and forth with another player on the floor. How dare you bring up Angel Reese in comparison to Caitlin Clark? Jason Whitlock, I am disgusted.
Charles, your thoughts?
You saw something different than I saw with Angel Reese Sunday. But Jason, you ever have one of those mornings where you wake up and you have every opportunity to go and do the right thing, but you choose violence for some reason? That's kind of how I'm feeling today. Let me throw some stuff at you. A couple of things. And I can say this because I'm a big fan of Caitlin Clark's, but I'm also honest about it. Now, I think people compare her with a logo threes and step back. You compare her to Steph Curry, that type of player, right? Well, as a point guard, statistically speaking, her offensive game is more like Russell Westbrook's. Look at her shooting numbers. High 30s, always high 30 to 40 from the field. Below the league average in three-point shooting. In the volume shots. And she get a bunch of assists, but like Westbrook, she get a bunch of turnovers. Now, I know Maurice is just dying on that one, but those are facts. That's not my opinion. Those are absolute facts. Here's who Caitlin Clark reminds me of. And I saw this. I started seeing it when I was coaching at Kansas State over 20 years ago. You get a lot of players. I've coached a lot of players that come from great families, two-parent households, middle class to upper middle class. And you know what they do when they get to school? They do everything possible to try to let the other guys know, no, I got a little hood in me too. I'm just as tough as you are. I got a little gangster in me. And they go out on the court and they do stuff. And that's, think about Caitlin Clark's dad is sitting up in the stands basically telling her to shut the hell up. Because that's what he was saying. What are you doing? That's not who you are. And it's like athletes go overboard. It's almost like, and I had a guy like this, it was almost like he was embarrassed to be an upper middle class kid. So he wanted to sink down to their level and say, hey, let me pull my pants down. Let me go out here and act a fool like everybody else to show you I got that dog in me. And it's not just a Caitlin Clark issue. I've seen this over and over for the past 20 years. It's almost like it's an embarrassment to say, hey, my parents was together. They raised me right. They was there. They loved and supported me, and I had everything I needed to have growing up. It's like, no, in order to be a good basketball player, I got to show that I've had some hardship too. So let me show you how much dog I got in me. And you can spot it. You can spot it real easily when you see it with different people. And that's what she reminds me of. But statistically speaking, right now, her numbers say more Russell Westbrook than Steph Curry. Now, Maurice, I know you didn't want to hear that.
I'm at a loss for words. Russell Westbrook, hey, top 75, average triple-double, not going to take away from that. Russell Westbrook can't pull up for 30. He's never been able to pull up from 30.
Yes,
if you would have went more Damian Lillard, I would have respected it.
Yes, he did. They probably shot the same percentage from three.
The numbers are the same. Numbers are, and by the way, for me, Russell Westbrook was much CTV. My mama watched Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook play more than she watched me play. It made me mad. I'd go home and Westbrook, my boy. And she's just go on and on about KD and Westbrook hung the moon. KD left Oklahoma State and he left Oklahoma City. She's been ticked ever since. But the television was always on when Russell Westbrook played. He was one of my favorite players. But the numbers are where Caitlin Clark's numbers are. They're the same. It looks different, but the numbers come out to be the same. Low 40s at best, low 30s in three-point shooting. All right.
5 or 6
a lot
turnovers.
of assists, but a lot of turnovers.
It is what it
Well,
is.
Well, that whole low 30s and three-point
those are
shooting.
Facts.
Well, you about to, now that we're officially playing the Caitlin Clark offense, because Stephanie White has been forced to concede. Remember, I told you guys, Caitlin Clark mapped this thing out perfectly. She gave Stephanie White the first 10 games, you go 500, and she picked out the terrible part of the schedule to say, hey, we're going to play my style. We are 3-0 playing Caitlin Clark style versus bottom feeders. I agree, bottom feeders. I don't think the Indiana Fever are much better, which is why I see why they're celebrating, because they know they ain't no good either. But the Indiana Fever are 3-0 playing Caitlin Clark style. I ask you this. For so long, Charles, weren't people saying Caitlin Clark is soft? Caitlin Clark needs to stand up for herself when people were calling out her teammates for not defending her, which is why Sophie Cunningham became this huge viral sensation beyond being the blonde bomber. But her standing up for Caitlin Clark, she did something that we saw none of her teammates do throughout the first 2 years of her season, and people were calling Caitlin Clark soft, saying you need to stand up for yourself. The second she does and starts chirping back and letting Tiffany Hayes know, yeah, me and you, I'm not scared. Me and you, it's a problem. What has being nice in this league gotten Caitlin Clark? She went and spoke up for the black women in the league. They still didn't like her. She was behind the scenes trying to get the players more money. They still didn't like her. She got them all on private jets. They still don't like her. Why continue to play nice? Why continue to play nice?
I don't think Caitlin Clark has ever played nice, and I don't think Caitlin Clark has ever been soft. I think for some reason the media treated her like she was a wilting flower. If you foul Caitlin, hey, I remember she kind of gave Kennedy Carter a little bow, and everybody leaves that part out. And they came down on the other end, and Kennedy Carter kind of nudged her in the back. I saw that on NBC News. I saw that on not sports part. I saw that. I mean, it was as if Kennedy Carter had came out on the court with a loaded 44 and shot this girl in the leg. It was unbelievable. She got fouled. Everybody gets fouled. Everybody gets a hard foul. It's you know, I'm looking at something.
Charles, we got to wrap.
Yeah,
go ahead. Make your final comment, but we got to go.
Yeah. Kelsey Plum went through the same thing when she came in the league. Go back and look. Diana Taurasi and those girls are just knocking the crap out of her and looking at her laughing about it. Nobody's saying anything about it. I mean, Caitlin Clark is not a wilting flower. I believe that. Leave her alone. Let her go play. She's going to be fine.
I certainly see that. She's never been a wilting flower. She's been taking on these battles. White girl, I'm sure since junior high, black girls have underestimated her. She figured out a way. She can be more of a leader. Gentlemen, I'll have you guys back tomorrow. The Fever play tonight. I got to get to the Harmony Channel. The Harmony Channel, the Today Show is going to be amazing. Jeff Metcalf, the father of Austin Metcalf, will be with me for an hour on the Harmony Channel. We'll see you there in about 60 seconds.